This is a TaxCast Extra from the Tax Justice Network. I'm Naomi Fowler. The film, The Emperor's New Clothes, is out. It's a powerful look at how we ended up in all the craziness of this age of austerity. It's a brilliant collaboration between Russell Brand and Michael Winterbottom, with some great people in it. Tax justice is key in the solutions it offers. I'll let you know how to organise a screening at the end. Coming up is a chat with the director of the film, Michael Winterbottom. But first, here's a clip from the film of Russell Brand doorstepping right-wing newspaper owner Lord Rothermere over his tax status.
These so-called non-doms, like Lord Rothermere, avoid more than £4 billion tax per year.
Hello, mate. I just wondered, does Lord Rothermere live here, please?
So you want to speak to him?
I'd love to speak to Lord Rothermere, yeah.
What's your name again?
Say it's Russell Brand to speak to Lord Rothermere. Say it's about living here and taxes. I just wanted to ask if Lord Rothermere lives here.
Yes, he lives in here.
Does he pay his taxes in England, do you know?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. Because if he's domiciled here, he should pay taxes here. I just wondered, one, did he pay inheritance tax on the £1.5 billion when he inherited the Daily Mail off his dad, whose name was also Lord Rothermere, by coincidence? And also, if it's true that he runs the Daily Mail out of Bermuda, which is a tax haven, and controls it from Jersey, which is also a tax haven. Hello? Lord Rothermere? Lord Rothermere?
Russell Brand. He's great in the film, but for me the stars of the show were also the people struggling to get by, yet still finding the time to campaign for a better world for everyone. Here's the quick chat I had with Michael Winterbottom on the day the film was launched. Why did you want to make this film, first of all?
I think the starting point was how did we get persuaded that the solution to the financial crisis was to cut public spending, to have wage freezes for public sector workers, to have stagnant wages for ordinary workers. How did something that was so obviously a failure of the free market and a failure of the bankers get shifted so easily into being a problem for everyone else?
How did you manage to work with the complexity of the issues and with such a big personality at the same time?
And one of the great things about working with Russell is that Russell is both passionately committed to campaigning on these issues, but also is popular. So his whole life at the moment is taken up with this political activism, for want of a better word, and so it was great from that point of view. It's good. He's funny and he's good with people. It's like he can be quite kind of anarchic, but that's good, I think. The starting point of the film was talking to Russell about the general idea of bankers and putting what's been going on since the financial crisis in the context of the last 35 years. The last 35 years of free market fundamentalism. Because Russell happened to go to school, to start school, the year that Margaret Thatcher was elected. So we could work a little bit around Russell's life and his move from Grays in Essex to the City of London and so on. So, so the shape of it kind of came from that conversation. And then Russell went off, after we said we'd made the film, Russell went off and wrote Revolution, his book. So there were bits we could borrow from that. So, the idea was to keep it as close to Russell, the areas that Russell wanted to talk about and Russell was interested in as possible. So, and in the end, the film was a mixture of stuff that that I wanted to do and stuff that Russell wanted to do, and the film is the overlap of those two areas. So it was easy. The quick answer is it was easy because Russell is genuinely committed to trying to campaign. Say with New Era housing. So obviously that was all easy. A lot of that stuff was generated by Russell really, and then it was just a question of how to piece it together with the kind of stuff, say that the information we got from Tax Justice Network. We were working with lots of campaigning groups and trying to make sure we could get as much of what they were telling us into the film. But when you've only got 90 minutes, it's hard, so you end up leaving loads out. And there is stuff, like for instance John Christensen's interview, there's a longer version of that on the DVD extras. Right,
well that's good to know. And what do you hope to achieve with the film?
Well, obviously you want to change the world, but more realistically, I just kind of hope that people watch it. People watch it, that they feel angry about what's been going on. I think everyone will recognise it, as Russell says at the beginning. This film is not uncovering some thing you don't know, some big secret. It's not an investigative film, but it's kind of trying to make it fresh again. It's 2008, everyone knew the financial crisis was the fault of unregulated free markets, and yet 2 years later we were persuaded that the cure for that was to cut public spending, to have 80 billion of cuts. And so it's like you need to constantly try and make fresh, what people felt about these things the first time they kind of became aware of them. So I hope when people watch it, they think, yeah, I recognise that, and I'm really angry about that, and why did I forget to be angry about that recently? And ideally they go out and get involved. So the idea is that around the film, we want to try and create as many easy links through social media that people who see the film can then go and get involved, whether it's with Tax Justice Network or War on Want or local kind of campaigning groups or or whatever form of action it is. I think the general message of the film is you can change things, but in order to change things you have to get involved and get active.
Are you an optimist? Would you describe yourself that way? I
am. I actually do think it's like we've had 35 years of this kind of free market economics, and it's time for change. I think people are ready for change. I think, that idea, whether you liked it or not, has run out of energy. Has got no new ideas. That's why David Cameron's recycling every old policy from the 80s, because they have no new ideas. It obviously hasn't worked. You look at the last 5 years of austerity, it obviously hasn't worked. I think, even people on the right, like Osborne and Cameron, they have to talk the talk of let's, stop tax avoidance, even though they do nothing about it. And I think it is time for change. I think things can change, but obviously the only change is when there's pressure from below to make things change.
What you saw a lot was the stories of ordinary people trying to stop themselves drowning, really, on very small incomes, very high living costs. So many people are trying to keep their head above water, and they're so busy thinking about that there's very little time and space for people to actually take action. And
Absolutely. I mean, I think that is one of the big things. How if you want any sort of democracy, people have to be able to have the time and energy to get involved in things that affect their life, at a local level, campaigning level, and that's why I incredibly admire. Like, we filmed cleaners who are working like 12 hours a day on £6.80 an hour, and yet they're still active in their union after that. To have that determination to try and fight for something better is incredible. I often think I should get more active, but I think I'm too busy doing whatever I'm doing. And I think for a lot of people, as you say, a lot of people have to work so many hours to keep their heads above water that the idea of getting involved in political action, like direct political action, or like just involved in the community, like on the school council or whatever it is, they just don't have the time or energy to do that. And that's one of the most anti-democratic aspects of what's going on at the moment. And I do think that is different. I think probably 30 or 40 years ago, people did have more time outside work to feel like they were involved. Whether it was just bringing up their family or being involved in their church or their school or their council or whatever, they had more time to think they could get involved in controlling their lives. If people were paid a decent wage per hour, people wouldn't be having to work so many hours.
Right, because you saw some people that were working 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet, and probably even that didn't go all the way. I thought what was really interesting in the film was the way that people actually told their own stories and had their own agency very strongly in the film, and there were big characters. Were you surprised by some of the people you met while you were filming?
Yeah. It's like when you're doing that sort of film, it's always a bit random who you come across. I think actually most people have a story to tell. The people in our film were great, and most people are telling the same story, which is that they have to work incredibly hard. It's incredibly hard to make ends meet. They want the best for their kids. They're trying to juggle a job and bring up the kids. They're struggling, but they're still trying. We were trying to find people who weren't at the extreme in any way, but just people who are having the kind of experience that a lot of people, most people, are having these days. And I think that's one of the strengths of Russell, is that he's good at making people relax, and once people relax, then they articulate and can tell their story. Whereas for me, for instance, as you can tell, I'm not very relaxed, and therefore I'm not very articulate.
What kind of impact has the Tax Justice Network had on the way that you think or the way that you've presented some of the things in the film? I wonder if you could tell me a bit about that kind of influence. Yeah, well, look, neither Russell nor me are experts in any of the areas we deal with in this film, so it was great to kind of work with people who really know what they're talking about. And so, meeting with John Christensen, Tax Justice Network, obviously we completely depended on him to give us a kind of clear and understandable picture of what's going on, what's going wrong with the tax system. And it's great to have someone in the film who's actually saying tax is a good thing. Tax is how we share resources. This is how we kind of organise society so that it can work. And then be able to kind of make really shocking points about how much tax is being avoided, but also kind of just really simple and clear points about how it can work, how it should work, and that the problem is not that it's technically difficult to make a better system. It's just political will. If you have the political will, you can change things. Michael Winterbottom. And so to see the film, for Taxcast listeners in the UK, you can find out exactly where the screening of the film is closest to where you live on www.theemperorsnewclothesfilm.co.uk, and you can organise a screening for you and your mates on your doorstep. The details on how to do that are on www.ourscreen.com. This is a Taxcast Extra from the Tax Justice Network. To hear more of our podcasts, go to www.taxjustice.net/Taxcast or look for us on iTunes.